What's going on? Welcome. It's Mike Gastin. Hope everybody's doing all right today. Getting a little live stream. We're going to do the currency in just a minute here. Just getting the text set up. Hope everybody's doing great. All right, let's get into it. So this is the currency. This is episode number 144 of the podcast. Glad to have you guys along. It is what? What is today? Today's Tuesday. March 26th, and we're broadcasting today at 4 p.m. Eastern. Glad to have you guys along. Excuse me as I take a little sip of water. Yes, a lot to talk about today, We're going to talk a little bit about the cocoa market, the cacao market. I'm not sure how you say that. We're going to talk about the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore, or Baltimore, as people say. We also got Truth Social that went public today, and also we're going to talk a little bit about Legoland. Legoland going surge pricing. And so we're going to just attack a bunch of the stuff. If you are joining me for the live stream, do me a favor, let me know if the audio and the video look and sound, if they sound and look all right. Glad to have you guys along for the podcast. Welcome. So let's start with the Francis Scott Key Bridge, that just terrible thing that happened about 1:30 in the morning. A big container ship called the Dolly, I think owned by Maersk, or at least leased by Maersk to move containers, was being piloted out of the Bay Harbor area near Baltimore. When it's being piloted like that, it's actually a local employee that does it. You can't just like be the captain of the ship and leave the dock on your own. It has to be piloted out by a Baltimore pilot. And I'm assuming there's a union. I haven't looked into that, but I would assume there's some type of union, whatever, being piloted by someone from Baltimore that is local there, and it's their job to pilot these ships in and out. You don't just let anybody do it. It's probably one of the reasons why all the news reports are like, look, we don't think that this is a terrorist attack. I mean, it was being controlled by an individual whose job is to do that day in and day out. The ship was not taken over. What is very interesting about this, strange, is that the ship lost power. If you watch the video, the ship is approaching the bridge, and then all of a sudden, all the power just goes out. The ship just goes dark, completely dark. And I've heard, people say that work in this world, like, when the ship loses all the power, it just goes silent. The engine, everything just goes silent. Of course, this is like 1:30 in the morning, so it's just totally silent. Terrifying. When you're on a ship and you totally lose power, it's terrifying because you're at the mercy of the elements you can't control. I would imagine when the power goes out, they lose control of the rudder. So right as the ship is approaching the bridge, it loses power, goes dark. You should watch the video. It's just really something to watch. And this thing just drifts and drifts, and then all of a sudden power comes back on. You see all this black smoke coming out of the top because I'm sure they're just like revving those engines trying to reverse course or something. But eventually the ship plows into one of the I guess you call it a pylon or pile, that holds up this bridge. And as soon as it hits it doesn't take much time at all. As soon as it hits it, the bridge just collapsed. Now, I've been over that bridge multiple times, and not that long ago when I do some client work up in Pennsylvania, and to get there, I will fly from Charleston up to Baltimore. And then I will leave Glen Burnie, which is just outside of Baltimore, where the Baltimore Washington Thorogood Airport is, and then drive up towards Pennsylvania. And it will, Google Maps will often route me over that bridge. Now, sometimes there are a set of tunnels. I'll do the tunnels under, but I have gone over that bridge numerous times. So terrifying to see it. And, what you watch when you see the video is, the ship is going along, and even though it's like 1:30 in the morning, I mean, you see tractor trailers and trucks and cars, using that bridge. And Baltimore, a pretty populous city, and that's a very active port for the U.S. and for the East Coast. And so vehicles did go down into the water. There were workers, actually, there were a crew filling potholes. I think they were able to rescue at least 2 of them. But they have lost others and they don't know where they are. There are vehicles underwater. They haven't rescued any of those people. I mean, I would assume those people are long gone. So just horrible what happened. I don't have a whole lot to say specifically about the incident itself. I'm not a maritime expert. I live at the coast. I'm in and out of Baltimore quite often, but I don't know enough about all this to have any type of expert opinion. I will say there is this kind of broader thing that I'd like to address, which is this. There have been a number of transportation-related catastrophes or near catastrophes. You look at some of these trains that have derailed and crashed in the U.S. over the recent years, big chemical spills. There was the one town in Ohio, just horrendous. You look at some of these bridges collapsing. There have been bridge issues, the bridges collapsing without being rammed by a ship. But you look at what happened today where the ship lost all control, slams into this thing, it collapses. And I'll tell you, as I've driven over that Francis Scott Key Bridge, it's not the most modern bridge. It's an old bridge. I've never felt worried about driving over, but it's an old bridge for sure. Just a couple quick shout outs here. We got Doza Archives, top port for cars and wheeled vehicles, 100%. Kind of surprised the ship didn't have any sort of battery backup, or if it did, that's a double failure. Yeah, again, I don't know much about how all those things work, but 100% just startling. And I think this gets at some of the infrastructure stuff. Lidosh is here. Welcome, my brother. Glad to have you along. So yeah, the thing for me is I look at a lot of the infrastructure, transportation-related infrastructure, even the newer stuff like the Boeing jets are having issues, the door blowing off a new one. There's some other issues with Boeing equipment. It just seems to me that our infrastructure is not holding up, When I say infrastructure, I don't just mean roadways or railways, but just the equipment, the stuff that moves us back and forth, the roads, the vehicles, the trains, airplanes, buses. I mean, it seems like things are not holding together. And, one of the things that you have to look at with any system is you have to look forward. Like if you own a house, if you own a car, if you know that you need to maintain your equipment, not just for the moment, but for the future. If you don't maintain your equipment for the future, that you will pay a price. I was just out earlier, last night I tried to mow our lawn for the first time. It's spring here in the southeast, and I get the lawnmower out. I hadn't touched it all year. You pull. It's a gas lawnmower. You pull the cord. It turns over, starts going, but then it's pulsing. Run, run, run. You go, okay. There's something. Something's wrong with the carburetor. I don't have any carburetor cleaner, so I go today and I pick up some carb cleaner and I take the engine apart and spray it and put it all back together, and it's still not run properly. But this is one of those instances, like, I really do nothing to maintain that lawnmower. I at the end of the year, I mow for the last time, and I don't think twice about it. So for instance, I'm kind of ashamed to admit this. There's a fuel lever. So there's a fuel line, and you turn it so that fuel can get to the engine. And when you're not, when you're storing it, you turn that off. All right, I left a fuel line open. I can't remember, but I probably didn't put any fuel stabilizer in the fuel tank and run it for a minute so that all winter it was kind of stable and not gunking up. I'm sure I run ethanol fuel through that thing, which is terrible for small engines. I just don't take care of it. And sure, it works, and I get the lawn mowed, and thing's a piece of garbage anyway. It's a Honda. I've not been happy with it from the minute I bought it. But what you find is over time, when you don't take care of things, they fail you. They fail you. And my lawnmower is an example of that. Like, I have not taken care of it, and the stupid thing has failed me. I don't know if you can hear Izzy barking in the background. This damn dog, she's going to be the death of me. Anyway, I think that's what we're dealing with here in the U.S. and probably across the West. It just seems that we have not been taking care of our stuff, our roadways. If you're in America, especially, I can't speak for the whole country, but certain states, and you drive across America, and I feel like a lot of this happened under the Obama administration. I'm not blaming Obama necessarily. But during the Obama administration, there were a lot of cutbacks. We had the economic crisis that he inherited. It didn't happen under his presidency. It started before him. But we had the economic crisis. He took the helm, and they just started cutting back on stuff. And it was seemingly small stuff. You may have had crews out, mowing the grass and clipping trees and everything, pruning between the median between highways, keeping things clean, keeping things up to date, painted, etc. It seemed like a lot of that stuff just got put to the wayside. I was like, we can't afford to invest in these things, and so we're just going to stop doing that. And so then you have this kind of landscape, if you will, that is a little bit more tired looking, a little bit more worn down. I don't know. I'm not accusing. I'm just saying it seems like we stopped taking care of things. I think there's another thing happening too. We stopped taking care of things, and now we're sitting here years forward. It wasn't just Obama. I'm just saying I noticed under Obama. I know people are going to start making comments like, oh, you're attacking. Yeah, I'm attacking Obama. I'm not blaming it all on him. I just noticed that we stopped maintaining on a certain level, more cosmetic. But I think it goes deeper than that. And it seems to me that America has not done a good job maintaining its infrastructure. And some of that, I think, too, is the battle between the left and the right over our industrial economy, our petroleum, hydrocarbon-based transportation. There's this sense that, like, we got to get rid of all this old stuff because it's bad for the environment. We've got to, get rid of cars and trucks and roadways. They're terrible, and trains are terrible, and everything's bad. And so you just stop. There's almost like a lack of priority. It's not that you shut it all down, but you just deprioritize those things. Well, after a while, that starts to catch up to you, and it doesn't take a lot to cripple a system. If you think back in a few winters ago, Texas had that crisis where they had really cold weather. It was a cold snap. I don't remember exactly what happened, but there was a cascading effect where their energy system, their fuel, I think electricity specifically, collapsed. And they were kind of hived off. They had an old infrastructure that had not been maintained on a certain level. It wasn't ready for the stress it experienced. It collapsed. And it was a real crisis. I mean, it was a big deal. So I think that the country, I said there's a couple reasons. I think one is we're not maintaining. Number two, I think there's more stress on the system. And I'll give you an example. This is just anecdotal. I don't think it necessarily means anything. But, when I flew in the 90s for work, I used to travel a lot for, I was a young sales guy and I'd fly a fair amount. The airports were easy to navigate. There were people, don't get me wrong, but there weren't a ton of people, and you could kind of get from point A to B, and the planes weren't, sweaty and packed, and flights weren't canceled all the time and delayed. Often you'd show up and you could talk to somebody at the customer service desk at the gate. You might get an upgrade. You might get, a little bit of a perk here or there if you flew with them often enough. But there was a kind of ease to travel. And this was the 90s. This was not, we're not talking about 1952 here. You travel now and it's just swamped with people. The gates are packed, they're sweaty, people are frustrated, the flights are full, they get often delayed, canceled. It's like the system seems to be not just unmaintained, but like there's so much more strain on the system, so many more people traveling. I often sit in a gate and you don't have to have a reason to fly, but I just look at the gate, I people watch, and I'm like, sometimes I try to, like you can kind of create little stories, little fictions, if you will, about the people flying. You might see a retired couple at the gate, and you could tell, they're off to see some grandkids, or they're taking a little bit of a sunshine trip. They're going to get away from the cold. You see these other people though at the gate at times, and you're like, what is this? Who are these people and why are they here? I don't mean to say they've got no right. I get it. Like, this is a free country and you can travel about the country. But I look and it's like, why are these people here? I see the basketball team. I get it. They're going somewhere. I see the retired couple. I see the guy with the hard hat and the backpack, and he's going to a job site somewhere. I see the business travelers. I get all that. I see a family on vacation, but there's a lot of people, and it's just like, first of all, they don't look like they can afford to travel. I'm just being honest. And I don't need to understand, but it just seems like, why are they here? Like, where are they going? Where are these people going? And it's not just once in a while. It's like, we're just slammed with people. Now, so the interesting thing, the good thing about that is that travel is affordable. It's accessible to all levels of society. Interesting. But on another level, it's like, okay, the system's not designed for this, and it can't seem to handle it very well. And it just makes for a miserable experience for all. And then add to that, decaying infrastructure and failing technology. It just seems strange to me that a door would blow off an airplane. It seems strange to me that lights would just, all the power would just cut on a massive container ship at such a critical moment. Or that a train would derail filled with chemicals and essentially take out a whole town in Ohio. I say take out, I mean, it's the town's still there, obviously. So this is just, I don't really have a comment on the Dahlia and, the Francis Scott Key Bridge, other than I've traveled that bridge quite often, and it's just a little sobering to see that happen. At the same time, there's a general sense that our systems, our infrastructures, our things that we've taken for granted are not holding up. And I know this was an accident. I understand that. But if this were just a one-off, it just seems like on a pretty regular basis, there's some type of transportation-related crisis, accident that happens. And I'm wondering, what is the strategy? Like, who's paying attention to this? What's the plan forward? And can we get the country to agree together politically that we need to invest in this infrastructure? We shouldn't let it die. We shouldn't try to do away with it because of global warming, et cetera, but that we have to figure out ways for humans to get about the country. Lidash says, would you something to say to younger people than you, maybe about mistakes in life for 20-year men, for example? Lidash, I'll definitely do that. Today I'm doing, today on the podcast, I don't know that I'll address that specifically. Maybe if I hold some office hours in the next day or so and you're around, jump back on and remind me. We could definitely talk about that. That seems like a whole, I mean, if I've got a little time a little later, for sure, but today I won't necessarily address that right now. Doza Archives, here in the Northeast, we have bridges still up from before the war, both Cape Cod bridges from FDR. Been trying to replace them for years. Recently, federal funds were finally approved after 10 attempts. Yeah, a lot of this infrastructure just needs to be upgraded. And I get it. Like, here in Charleston, we've got a lot of water. And so it makes getting around from place to place difficult because there are only so many roads or bridges. You don't have multiple options in some instances to get on or off an island. And when I say on or off an island, I don't like an island with a few 100,000 people living on. I'm not talking about some little resort island. I'm talking about like going from where I live in West Ashley to Johns Island. Anybody on Johns Island trying to get on or off, which is a really growing area, there's like one or two ways. They're choke points. You can sit for hours and hours in traffic. It's just miserable. And so you get these projects that have been going for seemingly decades, like, hey, we need to extend the 526, which is a highway here, an expressway. And if we could extend that and get it into Johns Island, but it gets stalled because you've got environmental people trying to shut it down. You've got people, on John's Island that don't want more people coming, so shut it. Like, you get little private land disputes and political disputes and then the funding to get it done. And, the plan that you had for 10, 15, 20 years ago that was a good plan at the time, now when you finally are in a position to move forward with it, has become outdated. And you're kind of back to square one. So, these big capital projects, bridges especially, extending highways, roadways, et cetera, they're tough. They're really tough. And we've got a lot of political gridlock. It seems very difficult to get pragmatic, important work done. And a lot of it's down to politics. I was going to mention, I just had a list of things to talk about today. One of the things I just want to mention was the cocoa market. I don't know if y'all are familiar with the cocoa market, but I wanted to bring that up. I was going to show actually a news story, but you know what? I'll hold off on that. Essentially, if you keep an eye on chocolate, you're going to start to see the price of chocolate going up and up. And part of the reason for that is they've had some trouble. I mean, there's only like 2 places in the world, essentially West Africa, where you get a lot of your chocolate production. And they've had blights, they've had droughts, they've had all kinds of issues. And the crops, they're struggling with crops. So what's happening is that it's just there's a bit of a crisis, a shortage. And so the price of cocoa is skyrocketing. It's hitting all-time highs. As it becomes more scarce and more difficult to get a hold of, the price is going up. What you see is a lot of candy manufacturers looking for alternatives. I bring this up not so much because of a pricing issue, but just to throw out there to my listeners and my viewers, as you're, hold on one second here. Doza says child labor press 2. Some bad press, huh? With child labor, that'll do it. Well, maybe some right-wing group can do a movie about the child labor practices in the cocoa market, and that might make it easier and free it up because whenever anybody on the right mentions these things, immediately the left decides, oh, they're fine, right? So maybe a right-wing group can do a movie on child labor practices in cocoa, and that might free up the market. Just like that Sound of Freedom, made the whole human trafficking issue go away. The left really cared about human trafficking until the right did. Yeah. Anyway, I bring it up not so much for investment purposes, et cetera, but just be wary, as you're buying products in this capitalist world that we live in. One of the things that they're trying to figure out is like, well, what can we substitute? So on one hand, some candy makers will say, let's shift away from chocolate. What other types of confections can we make that don't require chocolate? There are other, flavors, and there are other, products and materials, et cetera, but raw materials. But what I think, and that'll be fine, like, okay, here's a strawberry candy, great. What you want to look for, though, is fake chocolate. You want to look for synthetic chocolate. And I think as this crop becomes more and more rare, and I think this is going to be a long-term problem, you're going to see more synthetic, low-quality chocolate products out there. And just want you to be aware. I mean, it's something worth looking out for. If you like chocolate like I do, keep an eye out for it, because I think over time you're going to see, one of 2 things happen. First of all, the price is going to go up on stuff, but then you're going to be fed either very low quality or fake product. Now, what would be probably par for the course in today's world is that both happen. They give you low quality fake chocolate at a high price. That seems to be the way things go these days. All right, anyway, moving on. Let's talk about Donald Trump, DJT. Actually, not Donald J. Trump, but the stock DJT. I'm not sure if you're aware, but Trump's Truth Social went live today on the stock market. I'd say it was an IPO, but it wasn't really. I mean, I guess it was, But you can see here, I'll just read the headline: Trump's social media company surges in trading debut in a big boost to Trump's wealth. You could say it was an initial public offering, but really it was kind of a backdoor stock opening. And what I mean by that is, and it's doing very well, by the way. This is an article by NPR just a few hours ago. Trump's social media venture soared as much as 59% in its trading debut on Tuesday, delivering a potential windfall of billions of dollars to the former president's net worth. Yes, that's the story, ladies and gentlemen. Trump is getting rich. It was funny too. I was looking. There's a lot of like news stories out there, and they're like, "Oh, investors are going to be disappointed, and this is very problematic." And but there's all this kind of like anxiety and angst around Trump's Truth Social going public. Now, you may not have heard that it was going public. Trump is now in the Bloomberg Billionaires Index. NPR, oh my gosh, the worst thing that could have ever happened. What's interesting about this, there's a group called Digital World Acquisition Group. I'll just jump over to them real quick. Digital World Acquisition Group. And Digital World Acquisition Group was already publicly traded. And this Digital World Acquisition Group acquired or merged, kind of did like a reverse merger with Trump's Truth Social. And by doing that, it brought Trump's Truth Social to the market. Now, here's the deal. Digital World Acquisition Group is a Donald Trump business. So there's a way that you can do an IPO in that you have a company that's already publicly traded, and it's kind of like a shell company. You get it listed. It's on the NASDAQ. It's not that hard to get listed on the NASDAQ as compared to some others. Once you're listed on the NASDAQ, you have these, it's almost like you've got these sleeper cells. You've got this company on the shelf. It's already listed. Then you can do this merger, and when you merge, the company you merge with becomes part of that publicly traded entity. When they merged, they renamed it, and it became the Truth Social, trading under the ticker of DJT, Donald J. Trump. So what's interesting about this is that I want to say like back in 2020, I can't remember how long ago, but it's been at least a couple years, if not more. Maybe it was just at least 2 years ago. They applied to do this, and the SEC said, "Yeah, no, we're not going to let that happen. We're going to put this under review." And they sat on it for a while. Well, they finally approved it. And the minute they approved it, this Digital World Acquisition Group went forward with the merger, and the thing went live. What's interesting to me, I keep saying what's interesting to me. This whole thing is kind of interesting. Like, first of all, Trump gives it the ticker initial DJT. All right, Donald J. Trump. The thing does great first day. Lots of 59% increase at times. I mean, the stock's doing great. But a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's a pump and dump. He's gonna pump up the price, and he's gonna dump shares, and he's gonna cash in, and he's just doing this." Like, whatever. I don't necessarily think that's true. And I think the media, anytime they get a chance to assume the worst about Trump, that's what they're going to do. They're never going to assume the best. They're never going to say, "Hey, this is actually a savvy move." I don't know that it's a savvy move. It's very interesting to me. I mean, think about the timing. So you put your initials, your personal initials. It's like me saying MLG Group. It's like Michael Lewis Gastin, MLG. So you go DJT, Donald J. Trump, and that's the sticker price. And whether this thing does, and it's Truth Social, everybody knows that's Trump. You're so close to an election. So let's say this thing tanks in just a few weeks or a few months. This thing doesn't do well. You're hurting your public persona. You're hurting your public brand significantly. And you're going to have people looking at this going, "Well, see, I told you Trump was no good, and nobody cares about him." Like, you're essentially putting yourself and your brand out for the public to vote on, quote unquote, before an election. It's kind of risky because on one hand, if it does really well and continues to surge, that's a really wonderful indicator that you've got a lot of public support. And it's a public indicator. People can see like how much support you have. That drives more support. Success breeds success. Okay, fair enough. But what do you do if the stock underperforms? I mean, you're just essentially giving your opponents, your enemy, all kinds of ammunition. And you're exposing your company, your Truth Social, to public scrutiny. Now that it's been taken public, you have to report quarterly. You have to report on all kinds of stuff. You're not profitable, where are your investments, what are your margins, all this kind of, like, all that stuff has to now become public. So there's a bit of a kind of a cost benefit calculation that you have to go through here. Like, are the risks, do they outweigh the benefits, the potential upside? And what is the upside? I just said a minute ago, like, a bunch of people are accusing him of wanting to pump and dump. He's, and now he's this, NPR, make sure that now he's so rich. Oh, he's so rich now. And he's one of the, he's listed as a billionaire now. It's like, oh, this is just a big cash grab by Donald J. Trump. Okay, so let's say he does that. I mean, again, that's downside for him. If he puts this thing out there and does a pump and dump and just dumps a ton of stock and makes $1 billion for himself, doesn't that really undercut the perception that he's doing all this to save America, that he cares about America, that it's America first? So why would he do that? Why would he enrich himself in the short term only to lose his last shot at election, at being president again? Essentially, I think it's his last shot. If he does that, like, he's really undercutting his position. On the other hand, I was wondering, it's like, okay, well, what if he's doing this because a big inflow of cash into Truth Social gives it more power to really amplify its message? You've got this social media platform that's not making a ton of money, if it's profitable at all, and you're coming up to an election, and you'd really like to be able to leverage that network, that platform, to get your message out. So you do a public offering. Even though you've been trying to do it for years, it finally gets approved right before election, as the election season's kicking off. They could have decided, well, let's wait until after the election. Let's not do this right now. They could have decided that, but they decided to go for it. That makes me wonder, is the idea to get a lot of cash, to get a cash infusion into the business so that they could really go all out in getting visibility for the platform? The only problem with that is the people that are on Truth Social are already Donald Trump acolytes, Donald Trump fans, Donald Trump supporters, followers. There are no, if there are liberals on Truth Social, they're only there to hate scroll. They're only there to spy on the other side. They're not there because they like it there. They're there out of animosity, one way or the other. So it does make me wonder, like, what is the play here? Because if you get $1 billion into this business, or 100 million, or whatever the infusion looks like, and you say, okay, great, we're going to use this to really get our message out. Well, these people already believe in you, and you've already got them. So where's that money going to? Are you going to grow this network somehow? Who are you going to grow it with? So I'm not quite sure what's going on here. Maybe it is a pump and dump scheme. Maybe Trump is just trying to enrich himself, and they're like, you got to cash in now, Mr. President, because if you lose this election, which we think you might, your window's gone. I don't know. It just seems like, to me, Trump is in this really weird space. He's got all this lawfare going on, lots of litigation against him. He's lost some really big, I say some. He has lost a really big case, it seems. I'm sure appealing it, but I don't know if he can. He owes hundreds of millions for this one case, which just seems ridiculous if you ask me. But even if he was guilty, like was it 300 million or 400 million he owes? And it's just like, come on, you're just trying to destroy him. Anyway, so I'm not really sure. He's got all the lawfare going on. He's trying to run a campaign. At the same time, this thing goes public. It just seems like he's all over the place, quite honestly. Now, I know there are a lot of Trump fans, and I'm not an anti-Trump. I'm just not a like diehard Trump guy, but I'm not an anti-Trump guy. A lot of Trump fans like, you got to trust the plan, like the whole kind of Q stuff. It's like there's a plan. He's playing 4D chess, and all. It's like, I don't believe it personally, but we'll see. Look, he's a smart guy. He's savvy. I'll give him that. He's savvy, and I'm just curious to see how this thing is going to play out. One thing I want to mention, I'll back up real quick since we're talking about stock market. That Francis Scott Key Bridge issue, already energy companies' stock are taking hits all over the place, coal, et cetera. That Baltimore Bay area, I mean, it's huge for processing and moving all kinds of energy resources, coal, et cetera. So a lot of energy companies, their stocks are cratering today because of this. Because this is not a quick clean it up and let's get back to business. I mean, this is going to take a very long time to fix. Very long time to fix. So I think the market's already letting you know, like, this is going to be a problem. So we'll see what happens there. Last thing I want to talk about today is Legoland. I don't know if you're familiar, but Legoland has announced that it is going to surge pricing. So a few weeks ago, we talked about Wendy's and their surge burgers. Legoland now announcing that they're going to also use surge pricing. Legoland, for those that don't know, are Lego-themed amusement parks. They're run by a group. Let me see what the name of this group is. Merlin Entertainments. And Merlin Entertainments, based out of the UK, they run a few other brands. They've got, I don't know. They got like Cadbury World and Sea Life and Madame Tussauds, wax museums. So they're one of these, entertainment groups. They own a bunch of entertainment properties that they must license the branding, and Legoland is one of them. And there are Legolands all over Europe and the US, et cetera. They're going to surge pricing. They're going to leverage machine learning and quote unquote AI to deliver dynamic pricing. The industry prefers dynamic pricing because surge kind of lets the cat out of the bag, doesn't it? When there's a surge in demand, we're going to charge more. Dynamic pricing is less odious, isn't it? Dynamic's just like, it's just dynamic. Dynamic's good. Hey, what a dynamic personality. But Legoland going to dynamic pricing, surge pricing. We talked about Wendy's doing this, and Wendy's tried to backpedal. The fact of the matter is Wendy's is doing it. I mean, they backpedaled a little bit. No. It's really about offering discounts. Oh, yeah, discounts. That's what we're just going to make sure we can do better offering discounts. Yeah, okay, sure. McDonald's has already been playing with this quietly, but now you see this happening in the amusement park world with Legoland. Here's the thing, guys. Here's the thing. All this demand pricing, Uber, Lyft, Legoland, Wendy's, all these folks, they're leveraging technology against you. They're leveraging technology in a way to ensure that they can get every nickel and dime out of your pocket that they possibly can. This is the weaponization of technology against you, the consumer. Now, I get supply and demand. I get it. I'm not anti-free markets. I understand it. But what they're doing is they're taking their ability to get better information than you. They're weaponizing their power, their capital, and their access to technologies that you and I really don't have access to. How could we as individuals? And they're leveraging that power to make sure that they can take as much of our hard-earned wealth as they possibly can. You go out and you work your job and you're frustrated and you struggle, the economy's tough, prices keep increasing with never-ending inflation and soon to have deflation potentially, stagflation, all this kind of stuff going on. You're struggling. There's all this insecurity. Your infrastructure is not holding up. The world's falling apart around you. It's falling apart around you. And these guys are taking technology and AI and all this stuff to weaponize it against you so that when you go out to eat, to enjoy some entertainment, etc., that they can extract from you as much as I won't even say humanly possible, just as much as is possible. They're trying to extract from you every little piece. I'll give you another example. Here's a great example. It's not surge pricing or dynamic pricing, but it's the transition to subscription-based software. Subscription-based software. It used to be that you paid money and bought software. And then every once in a while when you wanted to upgrade it or you wanted to get the new features, you would go and pay a little extra, usually a little extra, to upgrade. You paid your $500 or your $200 and this upgrade's $40. Often an upgrade would come included. It's like, hey, we fixed some bugs, there's some issues, we're upgrading you. Click here, download the upgrade, no problem. But when a new version would come out, and you're like, hey, now it does all these other things, these new things. And if you already own it, if you already paid once, it's $30 to upgrade or $50. But if you're going to buy it new, it's more expensive. Okay, fine. Like, that's fine. But now, I look at these subscription-based models, you're paying $50, $60, $120, $30 a month for something, and they're just raking in the cash. I'll give you an excellent example. Adobe Creative Suite. So I ran my design firm. We used Adobe Creative Suite all the time. Photoshop, Illustrator, PageMaker, InDesign, etc. And okay, you'd buy Adobe products. I mean, often it wasn't the whole Creative Suite. You might buy Photoshop. You buy a version of Photoshop. It's, I don't know, it was like $200 and some odd dollars. You buy a version of Illustrator. It's, $300. And you might spend $1,200 to get a designer all, set up with the software they needed. But that software would last them for years. You might do an upgrade. Once you bought a version, you did an upgrade. It was always at a fraction of a price. You were, there was an investment, but you paid the money, you maintained the software as needed, and you were fine. Nowadays, with a subscription, Adobe Creative Suite, it's like $60 a month for Creative Suite. So you pay that. I mean, in 2 years, they're winning. And you just pay that year after year after year. I mean, that's $60 a month, year after $55 a month, whatever it is. So these subscription-based models, they're terrible. I use QuickBooks for my business, and I have always preferred the desktop version, meaning you buy the software, you install it on your computer. I've always preferred that. And I've used QuickBooks Online. It's a totally different software package, not just subscription-based. It's an online, you log into a website. It's a web interface. It's a web app. I hate it. It sucks. And it's not just my personal preference. It sucks. Oh, it works. Don't get me wrong. The software works. But they've consumerized it to such a degree that it's like for total idiots. Like, they don't call a balance sheet a balance sheet. They don't call a profit and loss statement a profit and loss statement. They don't just use basic accounting terms. No, they use all these kind of like fake everyday parlance terms for a bunch of dummies. It's like a bunch of idiots are using this thing. They can't be asked to know, arsed to know what a balance sheet is. And so, QuickBooks Online calls it, I don't know. I don't even know. Like, I can't remember. It's just so obnoxious. So you have to really twist it around to get it to work the way you want it to work. And it just sucks. Anyway, they are getting rid of the paid version. You can't just buy it anymore. So the version I have is from 2019. I use it on my laptop I'm looking at right here. When I do invoicing and pay bills, etc., I run it all off this laptop. I have for decades, 20 years I've used this stupid product, and I've liked it. Like, I like QuickBooks. But they've gone to this online version. They're like, oh, we're not supporting the paid one anymore. You can't just buy it for a few $100 and call it a day, and you can't upgrade. There's no upgrade to it. They're not supporting it. It's just like, we're just done with that and we're moving on. It's all QuickBooks Online. And I kind of resent it, if I'm honest, because I don't want to do the QuickBooks. I just hate working with it. It sucks. I hope you're listening into it. But they want that $50 a month. They can't, it drives them insane that I was able to spend $250 years ago. They need that $50 a month. And so they're just going to force me or, the market into these products. And there's a whole generation of people that don't even know that there's a different way to get software. They're just used to subscribing to everything. By the way, if you see me messing with my mustache, I apologize, those of you watching live. I've got there's sometimes hairs will flip up and it's like tickling my nose. This is, you need to know this about me. So that's that. So the Legoland surge pricing, this is just, I'm all for free markets, but this is just a high finance capitalists leveraging technology against you and I in order to extract as much money from us as they can. And the only reason I care about it isn't because of Legoland, but it's because this surge pricing is being adopted and applied across the consumer experience. There are certain things that you're not going to be able to do surge pricing for, most likely, maybe like software subscriptions, but they're already getting you on the software subscriptions. But they can do other things that are similar. They can penalize you in all kinds of ways. You search online a couple times too many for something, and they know that you're interested because of your cookies and your browsing history. Next time you come to buy the product, well, golly gee, it's a little bit more expensive because they know they got you. So this is where the market is going. This is what's becoming standard for consumers, and it's going to be out of control in no time. And people are crying now about how they're impoverished, they can't afford anything. You and I are going to have to learn to live without the pleasures that they offer. I'm not saying that you have to live an ascetic lifestyle of some stoic, whose ribs are showing, and you're minimalist because you don't eat and you don't enjoy life. You just sit with nothing. I'm not saying that, but you're going to have to learn to be pleased by the simple pleasures, making your own food, having your own entertainment, getting together with friends and actually conversing, and things like movies and amusement parks and fast food and all that stuff. That stuff's going out the window. Now, you might be able to enjoy, going to a local place. Maybe there's a local brewery that's got some good food down the road. You need to patronize those people. And let's say you need to get a new hammer and screwdriver set. You ought to go to the local hardware store for that. The places that are not in a position to leverage this kind of technology, that actually have a relationship with you and that are invested in the community that you live in, these are the people that you want to do business with. This surge pricing and subscription models, et cetera, it's disgusting. It really upsets me. I don't know if you can tell. Anyway, so that's that. Be on the lookout for it. There's going to be more and more of this dynamic pricing. Everybody's crowing about AI and how wonderful it is. And golly gee, I can do all my work just leveraging AI, and I'm going to be a millionaire making the robots do everything. No, you're not. You're a fool. You're going to be stripped. You're going to be a pauper. You're going to be in digital fetters, enslaved to this digital AI-fueled surge pricing economy. And there's not going to be a damn thing you can do about it, because you will refuse to look at the world for what it really is and understand the real dynamics at play. You'll be unwilling to do what's necessary to break free. Now, I know you listening are not that way, but there's a whole world of people out there that are unwilling to do what's necessary to break free. They'd rather complain and point out how unfair everything is, rather than look around and go, well, actually, what could I do to make a change? What could I do to do something different here? Or how can I break free? I hope that's not the case for you. Boy, what a mood I'm in today. I started out today, I've got a little bit of a sinus headache, if I'm honest. I set this thing up with a mild headache, thinking, oh, I'll be fine by the time it's time to record. But it's kind of put me in a cranky mood, ladies and gentlemen. So if I did come across today just a little bit on the cranky side, I do apologize. But I will say this, I love each and every one of you. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to sign off for those listening. I'm going to stay on and answer some questions. Lidosh, if you're still here, let me know, and we can talk about your question. But for those of you listening to the podcast, thank you so much for joining. Love each and every one of you. Make sure to sign up for my free strategy newsletter. Just go to my website, mikegastin.com. There's a sign-up form at the very top of that homepage, mikegastin.com. It's free. I hit you about once a week if I'm good. Often I don't even do it once a week. Share some tips and tricks, tools regarding strategy, if you're into that sort of thing. Guys, I love each and every one of you. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Cheers. All right, Lidosh, if you're still here, talk to me. Anybody that's here right now, in fact, if you want to have a little bit of a chit chat before I wrap this thing up, just let me know. What are your thoughts on some of these news stories? And am I too negative when it comes to the AI surge pricing subscription model world that we're living in? It's funny, as we were talking about this, I found myself getting more and more upset about it. It's kind of been brewing in the back of my mind. And I think I need to do some more content on this. I think I need to do some more. It bothers me. I think I need to maybe focus on this a little bit more, unpack some of it. I think there's more story if you dig a little deeper as to where things are going. And I don't think people are paying attention. I mean, our heads are being put in a noose, and that noose is tightening. And I don't think people 100% realize it yet. Wait till they start pushing us to put chips under our skin. Oh my God. It's going to be, what a dystopia. I can't wait to be part of the underground resistance. I'll be live streaming my YouTube channel from a secret bunker somewhere. Oh, yeah, good stuff. So do me a favor, if you're here, I see a couple eyeballs watching. Just say hey in the chat. If you have any questions, you're welcome. Welcome to jump in and ask them. But Lidosh, if you're still here, you had asked this question before. Would you say something younger people than you, maybe about mistakes in life for 20-year-old men, for example? I got a lot to talk about when it comes to mistakes, my friend. Gosh, a lot to talk about. But I don't want to get into it if you're not here. You know, when you asked it, I was in the midst of kind of all the podcast content, and I just didn't want to derail from some of the topics to talk about that. But I would love to talk about that. It's a great question, and I'm very grateful for it. Just looking here at the chat. Now, here's the thing about being a tiny YouTuber. And by tiny, I mean I'm only 2 foot tall. Oh, I'm more than 2 feet tall. But a tiny YouTuber, meaning not a very big channel. You only get a few people on at a time. A number of people will watch the stream after the fact, which is pretty cool. But when you only have a few people on at a time, there's a little bit of a delay. So, you know, if you've got a lot of people throwing comments, it's just like the comments keep rolling. It's a lot easier. But, you know, if I'm sitting here like, okay, does anyone have any questions? Then I'm just like kind of staring at I'm looking at my screen because there's a window there for all the comments. It's like, hey, well, I do know that Dave Danglis is here. You know, the surge pricing, subscription-based, et cetera, stuff bothers me. This guy that deals with this topic a lot, he comes across as a hair trigger, but you might enjoy the vitriol. All right, talk to me, Dave. Who's this guy? By the way, Dave, as you're about to type your next link, and I don't know if YouTube will let you throw a link in the chat, but whoever the guy is, I want to let you know I did get your email. Dave sent me an email, and the answer is yes. I would like that list. The funny, and I'll respond to the email, but I want that list. Dave's got a bunch of CDs, music CDs, and I like to see the list of what they are because there are some I think I'm interested in. Funny thing is, you sent me that email, but the day before I was lying in bed, kicking myself that I had given up all those CDs. So Dave says, see the link above. Dave, no link came through. No link came through, buddy. I wonder if YouTube is blocking the link on my end. So we'll have to... What's his name? Dave, what's his name? Because Dave's like, see the link above. Well, no link came through. The vitriol, yeah. It didn't come through, buddy. At least on my end. I can, wait. Yeah, I don't know. Not sure why that's not showing up. But you can just send me the link outside of the show if you want, or just tell me his name and I can look him up. Is it me? I think I'm going to become that guy. Oh, yeah, Louis Rossmann. I was just watching Rossmann last night. Yeah, Louis is famous. I mean, Louis, in his big thing, because he is a computer repair guy, especially Apple technology, but Louis was very big on right to repair. You know, a lot of these companies create hardware that you and I don't have a right to repair or fix, modify, and Rossmann, you know, fought a lot against that on behalf of consumers. He also had a lot of trouble in New York City. He was set up in New York City, and they really were miserable to him. I got to imagine running a business with employees in a retail location in New York City is miserable in general. I don't know how anybody can do it. But I think Rossmann, didn't he move to Texas? I was just watching a video. It was actually very sad. There was a sad aspect to it. He alluded to, well, essentially an employee that a bunch of employees moved with him to Texas, and he had made it possible for people to come with him if they wanted to. And somebody came down with him, made a go of it, but for personal reasons had to go back to New York. And this person left him kind of a gift, and he made a video about it. Well, I guess Louis, he alluded to a family member. I would think it was a parent, but he said he had a family member that didn't like him. He didn't say who it was. It seemed like a parent. And they made it very clear throughout his life that they didn't like him. And on this person's deathbed, as they were dying, I don't know, in the moment of their death, but as they were dying, they had collected all their photos of Louis and torn them in half and kind of, I don't know if they threw them at him or gave them to him saying, this is what I think of you. Horrible. I mean, just how horrible is that? Like, I don't know. Maybe Louis was a terrible person. I don't know. I don't assume the worst about him, but that just sounds just terrible for anyone to experience at the hands of a family member. So this employee was staying at one of Louis's properties and found this envelope of these photos. And the employee didn't know the story. He's just like, gosh, this is terrible. So he found somebody that was able to reconstruct the photos digitally and then reprint them. Yeah. Yeah, I saw that one. He's got a pair of guns, doesn't he? I imagine he punched a few holes in a few walls. Yeah, young Italian. I don't know if he's Italian or Jewish, but a young New York kid for sure, you know. And he looks like he could get the little pissed off if he wanted to. But anyway, very heart-touching. This person is kind of a parting gift. Thank you for all the years of working together. And, you know, I don't know what happened here, but I thought I'd get these fixed for you. Was really just sweet, very sweet. Sad, but sweet. Yeah, Louis looks like he could punch a few holes in a few walls. What are we at? I know it's terrible radio to sit gulping your soda, your carbonated water as you do the YouTube thing, but hey, it's my party, and I'll cry if I want to. Yeah, so that's that. Guys, thanks so much for joining me. It looks like Lidosh did not stick around, and that's okay. We'll address his question. I'll share some of the mistakes I've made and advice that I would give to a young guy in his 20s in the next office hours or after hours when I run that. Thanks so much for joining me, guys. Hope you guys are all doing great. Hope you have a wonderful rest of the day for those of you that have a day left. And know that I'm very grateful for you to be here. And hope you have a great time. Talk to you soon. Cheers.